Thursday night. I guess we'll start calling these the interview the candidates editions leading up to the election in November. Super excited to have Celeste Heinonen. Heinonen? Did I say it? How did I? I'm sorry. Now I'm screwing it up again. Please.
Heinonen.
Heinonen. Heinonen. It's Heinonen. Yeah, we're excited to have her here. She's running for school committee, and we are. Well, she's one of 7, I believe, that are on the ballot. And what position did you fall in? Do you know on the ballot?
6.
6. Okay, we'll talk about that too. However, I do before we get there, Scott, and I'm sorry, Celeste, I'm gonna reserve the right here to have a little bit of my own latitude. I'm giving myself some latitude. We did something Monday night that the Winthrop transcript hasn't done in my lifetime. We broke a story about a local politician who, actually, this is the second time we've done it, really, but this one was bigger, who essentially cost the town by sending a text to the town manager, cost the town $130,000. So I wanted this. That's a pretty big milestone.
It's not just a local politician. Who is it?
Oh yeah, Phil Boncory. Yeah, I'm not afraid to say it anymore.
Yeah.
And what's his position?
Town council president.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm saying this now because there are people watching. We want more people to watch and participate. We know the more you know, the better our town will be when you go into the ballot into the voting booth. The more you know, the smarter votes you'll make. The less likely it is we'll have guys like this who are costing us money with really dumb moves. But moving on, getting back.
I want to do a disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed by the callers of the Winthrop Votes live stream are theirs and theirs alone and do not reflect the opinions of the host, co-host, producer, or the KOFB studio. So if you're going to call, be professional, stay on the point. We'll give you a little wiggle room to go left or right. But we do reserve the right to cut you off if we think you're going off in another direction. And we don't want to do that. So don't make me do that.
Yeah.
So, and that stems back.
There's already enough reasons not to like you.
Yeah. Everybody likes me.
Just kidding.
So, we all ready to our guest.
Yeah, we ready to do a good show, guys?
Let's do it.
Let's do this. Celeste,
Yep.
welcome. Why don't you give us a quick rundown about why you decided to run for school committee?
Sure. Thank you. And thank you guys for having me. So I'm, as you said, running for school committee. My family has been in Winthrop for, almost 35 years now. I grew up here and I was, a very proud graduate of Winthrop High School, always involved in the school system here and really felt at home with the school system here. So when, my husband and I were deciding where to raise our children, it wasn't really a question. Winthrop was really the only place that we would even think about. And my oldest son is 7. My daughter's 5. She just started kindergarten. I have a younger son who's in preschool still. And a few years ago, like so many other parents, my son started kindergarten, and then I watched him in kindergarten. He loved it. He loved going. He loved learning. He would sit in the car for hours and tell me every word that started with the letter B that he could think of. And it was awesome. I loved watching it. It made me so happy that he was loving school. And then the pandemic hit and everyone was forced to stay home. And I get it. At the time, it, was the right decision. The whole world did it. And that's understandable. But then I started to see things reopening. You could go to a restaurant. You could go to the movie theater. You could go to the mall and go shopping and roam around Target. But, my son, now 6 years old and in first grade, was sitting in his bedroom on a computer for hours every day. And I could just see the passion and love he had for school just drained from him over the months. And it was really frustrating, watching some of the school committee meetings, there were some great advocates for our kids, but I don't feel like everyone was a great advocate for our children. And it started to make me think, what else aren't we advocating for our kids? Like, what else am I missing? I'm new to the school system. What else do our kids need that they're not getting? And starting to kind of go down that road and talking to some people around town. And, my friends are people I parent with and family, and just kind of, felt like education's always been something I've been excited about. I went to undergrad for education. I didn't end up teaching, but I've always loved like the idea of academia. So I just felt like this was a really good chance for me to get involved in the community and in my children's lives, and maybe give something back to, a town and community that gave me so much from the school system. So, that's the overall pitch, I think, on why. Just hoping to kind of get in there and speak up for our kids.
I love it. Well, thank you for the download. Super helpful. And so I'd like to start actually by asking you, since you touched on it, since you touched on last year and kids and restaurants being open and this and that. Do you have a sense for when you thought it was like, all right, enough is enough? In terms of kids being out of school last year.
I thought enough was enough when they didn't go back in September. I think as a parent, in watching my son and talking to other parents, when they went home in March of 2020, and nobody knew what was going on. It was very scary. None of us, and I get it. And then the end of the school year came and went, and I just felt like we were learning more about COVID. We were learning more about transmission. We were all wearing our masks. We were doing social distancing. And I just thought that by the time the summer ended, everything was not under control by any means, but, we were managing it a lot better. And why can't my kid go to school? So I thought September would have been a good time to send them back and to let them, if they had to wear masks and sit 6 feet apart, then so be it. But they belonged in the school, I thought, in September. And it was disappointing that they didn't go back part-time until January. I was disappointed a couple of times in the fall that it got pushed back.
Do you know why they got pushed back?
I would only imagine, and I wouldn't want to speculate, but I think my just overall kind of opinion that I should probably keep to myself but won't is I think they've been politicizing our children a lot. So I don't think it really, I think it's been a lot of politicizing the teachers unions and money and the state and DESE, and I don't really know the backstories of it, but I don't see any real good reasons. That's all I can think.
Well, I can tell you, for a fact that, so as you know, on all the calls that were going on during this, all the school committee Zoom calls when the parents were out there advocating to get the kids back, during this time there was negotiation with the teachers going on, and a lot of it you can't hear. Most of it, actually none of it you can hear until it's all settled, right? It happens in the executive session. But to make a very long and very sad and very, in my opinion, and this is well known, very evil and underhanded way, the teachers union and the school committee were blaming each other. Well, actually, the teachers were blaming the school committee more than the school committee were blaming the teachers, because you had the school committee going along with it for the most part, with the exception of a couple of heads. But the teachers are going to walk out if they had to go back in September. The teachers who and look, I know the politics of it. I know that it's the loudest voices are the ones that are on the boards, the elected ones. They're the ones that are the most strident, and the membership typically, for the most part, doesn't even know what's going on, and they just want to teach. Okay. Right. But I'm blaming everybody in those buildings now, because your silence was deafening when you needed. It's if the firefighters and the police officers during 9/11 behaved the same way, we would be having but anyway, so I'm going off on a tangent, but the point is, you're absolutely right. It was politicized, and it was actually the teachers were going to walk out. That's a fact. That's a fact. They were walking out.
Yeah.
So they're in a contract year right now too. And I've asked this impossible question of Brianna, so I'm not going to do it the same way. But you're going to be. The reason I'm going this way early is I want to understand where your head is at here, Celeste, because you're going to be facing some early, fast, difficult situations. Contract negotiations are going to be going on. You may be part of the negotiation team. I don't know if you want to be part of it. And it's pressure. Okay. It's pressure. And it's a lot of people go into this thing thinking I'm going to stand my ground. And then they get in there and the camera's on and this,
Yeah.
it changes. Can you give us some sense of, I don't want to know what we're not going to talk about raises or any of that. What I want to know here is some sense of how you can make the community feel comfortable that you're actually going to advocate for the kids, unlike 5 of the 7 school committee members or 4 of the, I can't do the math so quick, but there were only 2 or 3 school committee members that actually looked out for the kids.
Sure.
I want to know if you're a mama bear. That's what I'm asking.
No, I totally understand. And, my kids are my top priority, like everyone else. And I feel like up there, I'll be looking out for everyone's kids like they're my children. And that's my goal, is to speak up for, my kids, my neighbors' children who are in my house all the time, my friends' children, my nieces, that's the goal. And I think that, you touched on some of the budget stuff and all of that. And I think when you're making any of those kinds of decisions, at the end of the day, to me, any financial decisions being made is this in the best interest of our goal? And isn't our goal to give our kids the best that we can? So, and I just think to answer that, if I can go to a school committee meeting and stand up for what I think is best for the children, and I can go home and feel good about that at the end of the day, then I'm okay with that, and that's all, that's the real only reason I'm running for school committee. I'm not in the teacher, I don't have these connections to the teachers unions, and I don't have an agenda other than I just want our kids to be happy and get a good experience here and be ready to leave the Winthrop schools and succeed in whatever they do, and so I guess I would just say, making any of those budgetary decisions or any other decisions, I just think you keep the same goal in mind. And if it doesn't fall in line with that goal, then there has to be an alternative.
Sometimes those alternatives are cuts. In fact, they're always cuts. This isn't a question. This is a stated fact. Don't let anyone tell you differently, because it is untrue. Every single year that we have to make a contractual obligation, we are hoping we have enough retirements to meet up with the raises we have to pay. We are no longer in that. We don't have enough older teachers now. When they say when they say our teachers are the lowest paid teachers in the state or whatever they're comparing to, they're not also telling you that we have one of the youngest teaching staffs going as well. So just understand that if we give a raise, we have to cut. We either cut from maintenance, we either cut people, we don't replace programs, whatever. Scott, were you going to ask a question? I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, that's all right. That's all right. So if or when you get elected, what unique perspectives or skills will you bring to helping the school committee?
So for skills, and kind of going back to what, Todd, you were just talking about as well, I'm currently a finance manager and manage a pretty sizable budget. And I think that skill and experience I have in managing that budget, especially, the industry I work in was very hard hit by COVID. So it was a lot of cuts and a lot of what do we need and a lot of tough questions and juggling and moving money and, all of that. So, it's a skill that I I definitely got to exercise a lot more than usual in the last year or so, but it's what I do for work and I enjoy it. And, I think one of the things I'd like to do if I'm elected to school committee, first off, is to kind of get to know the budget a little bit more and, maybe help identify some, if it's short-term or longer-term goals and things that we can, where can we, and maybe I'm being optimistic. Maybe I'm just ignorant. I don't, but like, what can we do with the budget that would help us long term? And I think I could lend a lot to that. I also just think, the viewpoint of coming in not from an education job gives me a different perspective as well. I'm not inside of the system and I kind of have an outside look. And my kids are still in the school, which I always think is an important perspective for the people on the school committee, because it's going to impact your kid too.
So you understand the numbers and you're a fresh set of eyes, as they would say, right?
Yeah, that's
understanding the numbers is very important.
Yeah.
Understanding the numbers is very important.
No matter what it's about money.
and why everybody runs is it's important. I would never downplay anybody's reason for running, but that's why I always ask, what skill set do you bring to this that separates you from the others or most of the others? And we don't know everybody's background. You wanted to come on, so your background gets to be put out there.
Yeah.
And again, understanding the numbers. How are you at? And this is kind of it's an odd question, but I think you'll know what I mean. How are you at handling criticism and difference of opinions?
Hopefully better than me.
It's fine.
It's a hard answer. It's a hard question to answer because you don't want to put yourself out saying, I'm a total badass and I don't care what anybody says. You don't want to say that, but
it's hard to not fight back sometimes, even just like on social media when people, it's hard to kind of step back. And I think you just have to stay cool. Cool heads prevail.
Fair enough. That's a good answer.
Well, cool. Celeste, and there's also another way. Like when I served, I always thought that, and I still believe to this day that the public forum is the place where the disinfectant needs to be sprayed, right? Mm-hmm. Nothing cleans up a mess better than light. And so I would say, I mean, I said exactly what needed to be said. So it sometimes made it hard for me to get votes, to get things done. So I would say if you feel like you're the type of person that can ask the superintendent a really tough question and press on it, then you should. As long as you have someone else you think that can collect votes and get in that is in agreement with you strategically.
Right. You have to have. I understand. I mean, I get it, and even not to bring work back into it, but a lot of negotiations. That's why someone has to be the bad guy. It's good cop, bad cop. I'm certainly not afraid to be the bad cop when it calls for it. But I think I'm also very reasonable and open to discussion and not so hard-headed that I'm not going to be able to see a different perspective. I think it has to be a balance.
Yeah, good.
All right. What's the big question is always, what is your take, opinion, attitude toward, or reaction to CRT? It's not in the school system yet. Now, and I always say this, CRT is not a class. Critical race theory is not a class. Like, some people really don't understand it. They hear these letters being thrown around, CRT and critical race theory. Critical race theory is not a class. It's exactly that. It's a theory that's implemented and injected into certain aspects of the education system. So what is your take on critical race theory in schools?
So, I'm not comfortable with critical race theory in schools, and for a few reasons. and this is one of those things where if you say what you really feel, not everyone is going to kind of back you up, and that's fine.
So give us your best political answer.
No, but I don't even really want, I'd rather
I'm
be
kidding.
honest. No, I know, but it's hard to talk about it because you don't want to come across
But it could come up.
insensitive either. But I just, there's a few reasons I'm not comfortable, and I don't support critical race theory as I've understood it ever. First, my husband and I talk to our kids about this stuff as much, they're young, so they see things and they want to know, like, what does BLM mean, Black Lives Matter, like they want to talk about it when they see it, and sometimes it's around the corner from your house on Shirley Street and you can't avoid talking about it with them. So we always talk about it and we always want to address it, but the language and approach that I've seen from any of the stuff on CRT that I've, done my own research, which is, I'm not an expert on it, but everything I've seen, it's not the way I teach my children. So I don't want someone in a classroom teaching them that way either. And I just am not comfortable with it in that way. And,
all right.
And I also think so many people, what we're teaching our students in the curriculum, I think it should reflect what all of the parents feel. And I think so many people, it's another politicized thing to me. And I think that upsets people. And I think it will confuse kids to give them information that their parents aren't going to be happy about them receiving. Like, it's just too much, I think, politicizing it. That being said, we should always teach about these things. We should teach about oppression, especially with our older students who are out in the world now already. And, it's important, but the whole thing surrounding it seems very, it's just a little too much for me.
See, the thing is, that stuff was always being taught. It just wasn't being taught the way the liberal left wanted it taught. And I'll say what I feel about it, and I know Todd and I are on the same page, that they want it changed to fit their narrative, and they want to cancel out certain parts of American history. They want to recreate, or what's the word I'm looking for when they revisionist. They want revisionist history, in critical race theory, and they want to separate kids at a young age. They want to divide them right away, and I think there's no room for it in any school system, but that's just me, producer and co-host of Winthrop Votes.
Just two humyuckers from Winthrop.
That's all. But yeah, good answer. Thank you.
Celeste, so let's just step back a little bit to the budget questions. Number one, I do want to make a comment. I don't know how this happens, but elected officials in Winthrop seem to, they run saying, yes, the budget is my primary responsibility, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not going to look for an answer here. I think you get it, but it bears repeating. That is your job. The school committee's job is to manage the superintendent and the budget, and with the children in mind, not the teachers union. And we have been far too long catering to the teachers union. Now, but getting back to the budget, you've got, there's a lot of moving pieces. It's very confusing. It's going to be hard to learn. I'll save you some time. You're not going to find any room with moving paper, saving printer ink and paper clips. It's not there. It's usually in staff. That's in salaries. That's where it is. Anyway, but do you have any, knowing that the budget's thin, do you have any ambitions about bringing programs into school? And if so, what types of programs are on your mind?
I think right now, as far as new programs, I think the top priority should be, where did we lose kids over the last few years and how do we get them back? I've read so much about learning loss and the MCAS scores in Massachusetts. Not that testing is always the answer by any means.
That's all we got, though.
Right. It is. And it is important too. But, how do we get back to the level of education and learning that we should be at? I think we lost a lot the last couple of years. And I was pleasantly surprised when I went to curriculum night for my second grader that came up a few times because I see it with him, and I think any additional programs right now, I know over the summer there were some programs in the school, in the elementary school. I'm not sure what they had at the high school and middle school level, but things to, enhance the education right now, I think should be the focus. I know that there in the past have been a lot of cuts to a lot of different programs and extracurriculars, and I know how important those are. I was a huge participant. I want my kids to have all of that, and that's important too. But right now, I just think the focus should be on, getting back to our education levels where we want the kids to be.
That's a really actually something I wasn't thinking about. I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because that's something that can probably be accomplished relatively cost neutral. Candidly,
Yeah.
You can find ways to get that done. So that's exciting. Another issue has come up recently that I just learned about. So the vocational school is building a new school. I don't understand all the mechanics of it, but apparently all the participating communities will need to kick in. Now, yeah. So we're obviously a participating community. So kind of a two-part question here. One, there's a certain way that if Winthrop, if the vocational school votes unanimously, I think it costs Winthrop $500,000. If the participating communities vote another way, it's a little bit less expense. Nonetheless, it's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars added to our budget to help build this new school,
Sure.
to help pay for this new school. So one, not that you have a choice, but just curious if you think it's a good idea. I mean, the vocational school does need updating, but it is a pretty good school. And two, I mean, how do you feel about the thought of trying to get some of this stuff back in the Winthrop school system?
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer it in the Winthrop school system. I have a son and a daughter, and they might go to college someday, or they might want to pick up a trade, and that's awesome too. And I would, if it were possible to get that education in Winthrop public schools, that would be my preference. I do think it's important to have some way to offer that to families. If we can't do it in Winthrop, I think it's great that we have the vocational school in general. I can't imagine how we would fund $500,000 to build it. So I think that would take a lot. And, we just had so many votes just to get the rest of our school built and the fields in our school built. How are we going to do that is a much bigger question, I think. But, if it were a choice between can we get it back in Winthrop or send our kids out, I would keep it here, But I don't know if that's even an option.
There's that increase that's going to be coming. There's an increase you get every year. When I was on the committee, because we had a lot of older teachers, they were already at the top of their pay scale. But now, apparently, our steps and lanes costs are somewhere between $800,000 and $1 million a year.
Yeah.
And that's before we talk about raises. Like,
right.
That's a lot of money.
A lot of money. Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean,
Celeste, what's your take on school choice? School choice is
like being able to choose to leave the town for other schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vice versa. And vice versa.
And vice versa.
I'm not strongly against it. I haven't really thought about it much. I guess I'm not strongly against it, but at the same time, the taxpayers of the town paid for these schools, these beautiful schools, and they paid for the teachers. And I think so many of us choose to live here because of the community. So, it's not something I'd advocate for, but I don't have any strong feelings against it either. I would, I don't think it's something that would be high on my priority list. I'm not, is there, I don't know. I don't, like I said,
you haven't put much thought into it.
No. And in my gut reaction is just, it doesn't bother me, the idea of it that much, that it's definitely not something I would prioritize over other stuff. And I think the town, like I said, the taxpayers built the schools. We should be using
What grade
them
are your
ourselves.
kid? What grade are your children in?
Second in kindergarten. They're young.
Second in kindergarten. So say you come up to your son he's a sophomore in high school, Winthrop High School, and these are just some of the things that could happen with that scenario. And he wants to play football, and all of a sudden, or he wants to play hockey, and some kid from Revere comes in and he gets bumped out. And he went through grew up in Winthrop,
Yeah,
the whole Winthrop school system. And then as a parent, now this doesn't mean anything to a lot of other parents. So what if your child was in drama and a kid from out of town bumps him? Or if your child was,
I mean, who would like that?
any scenario, yeah. And they could turn around and say, oh, it's because of school choice. Or my kid would have been playing on the Winthrop High School hockey team.
Right.
So there's and that goes for a lot of other things.
Oh yeah, no, it could go for being the valedictorian or the class.
I was
president.
just going to say the valedictorian, and so school choice. It's an iffy.
It is. And on the flip side, if my son wanted to leave and go to another school so he could do better in something, I would kind of rather he just stayed here and made his way here. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. So Wendy Millar Page, friend of the show.
Hello, Wendy.
She's said there's no way that being our current building for high school and middle school that we can add any vocational classrooms. We would have to add on building space, classrooms, teachers, and we're not in that position to do that. The vocation school provides, continued. Let me see. I think she actually wrote so much. It doesn't fit.
Yeah.
It
doesn't fit.
She wrote, so I'll finish it. So I'm all over the place here. Disregard what is on the bottom. So building space, classrooms, teachers, and we are not in a position to do that. The vocational school provides very detailed concentrations in certain areas like plumbing, woodworking, etc. But now I'm on to what we're looking at. In that equation, in real life, we're all going to have someone who's going to come in and may or may not be better than us at something and take our spot that we feel we deserve.
I think she's talking about school choice there.
Yeah, she jumped.
Well, and let me
concentrated effort in specific courses like welding, plumbing, etc. Okay.
And let me just throw this out there to Wendy and to you, Celeste, because I just said it earlier. That let's be clear about this. That school, eventually, the Vogue's already costing the town money. 100,000, 200. I don't know what it is any longer. We have to pay for our kids to be going there, which is fine. We should do that. When they build that new building, it jumps up to 500. We add on like 500,000. Why not just build our own at that figure, if it's feasible? Was kind of my point. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
The loop. You mentioned something on the loop.
Yeah.
The loop is kind of near and dear to my heart for a few reasons. One, my wife works at Fort Banks, and I couldn't stand the loop. Two, though we've been extremely lucky, I feel like that's just a death trap waiting to happen or a bad accident or something.
Yeah.
I was one day when I was the first year on the school committee, I got the call. They smell smoke, get the fire trucks down there. It was utter chaos. There were parents pushing and shoving each other. It was terrible.
I believe it.
So, and you may or may not know, I pioneered the bus program. When you get elected, you'll be serving with someone who's vehemently against it because he thinks it loses money. That's definitely not true. We looked at that budget up and down. It saved the school district money and lots of it. But I will agree with him that staffing it, keeping a bus driver and not having to get a full-time driver and then start paying benefits, which would eat up all the savings that we got, was it was challenging. And I'm not sure if it was challenging because we didn't have the right people trying to do the job. If someone was trying to sabotage it, I totally believe that that's possible. Or if it's just that tough to do, I can't speak to it. But I want to know: do you have any creative ideas?
I don't know how well received this would be, and I don't know if you're allowed, but I've seen, other parents that are in Fort Banks with us say that they would pay for a bus, like they would pay to be able to ride the bus.
We
You
paid.
know, and
We
can we
paid.
look at, can we look at that? I mean, I live on Elmont Street. We walk to school,
Yeah.
we're able to. We live right here. A lot of parents can't, so I'm not going to tell everyone they shouldn't walk, but it's dangerous crossing Revere Street. But I've seen parents say, I'll pay for a bus to come down the beach or down the point or the maze just to, cut. It would save everyone time and energy and safety. So, I think that's worth exploring. I don't know how much we would have control over like access roads. I know people have said, like, can you go out through like Governor's Park in the back? I don't know if we could even do that. But I think the bus is the best solution. And if we, had to charge, would people be interested? We could kind of do some sort of, survey or something to find out. But I would definitely push for that.
Yeah, you'll get that people will use it. When I started the bus program, we charged $150.
Yeah.
And people wanted it. They loved it, and the kids loved it. The kids loved waiting at the bus stop, but they loved being with their friends on the bus. It was great. They loved it. But I'll close the loop on the loop. You have an access road you can use only for so way back when Mr. Turco was on the council and I was serving, there's a road behind the DPW that goes from the Fort Banks area, Kennedy Drive, all the way over to Bank Street by the RPM gym.
Right.
Yes, that's already been done. The town owns that spot. You just got to get someone to get motivated and at least create an emergency access. Because right now, the town ordinance says it's okay if there's an emergency for fire trucks and ambulances to get in there.
Oh, so it is.
Yes, that at least should get done. I don't know why anybody hasn't got that done yet, because that's a safety issue. But I digress.
No, it's true. It's just a nightmare on a rainy day, never mind in an actual emergency.
That's right.
Sometimes I think if there was ever a real emergency in the town, none of us would get off the bridge. We would all be stuck here, but that's another story.
We do have the exit going out to Revere that at any time during a nor'easter or a hurricane can be shut down. It's everybody head to the bridge, and Winthrop's not designed. That's a whole infrastructure thing that we've been talking about on past shows. Too many people, too many cars, too many condos. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
So Celeste, is there anything you want to kind of, because we're at 37 minutes, so let's kind of, is there anything you want to say? Are you going to be anywhere? Are you going to be talking to anybody? Is there anything you want to promote, or is there any?
Good question.
Yeah, if you don't mind. Saturday morning, I'm going to be up the top of the beach near the green bars, just have some coffee and, some munchkins for the kids. So if anyone wants to come by and chat a little more, I'm going to be up there with my family. So if the kids are running around like crazy, that's all that is.
What time?
From 9 to 11 Saturday morning. And I'll probably try to do one more of those. Just, when we were getting signatures, it was really nice to just be able to kind of talk to people and meet some new people around town. And I've already kind of learned a lot. So that's been a really great experience. And I hope I can continue talking to folks and getting different viewpoints and, getting to know my community better.
How do people who maybe I've seen your signs out. They look great. You've got a lot of decent locations. I know signs don't vote, but I also know that in a race like yours, and I promised we'd talk about this, you are 6th on the 7th, right?
Yes.
So the tricky thing about a 3-seat race in a townwide race with 7 candidates is the top three spots are going to get votes, the lazy voter vote.
Right.
Tick, 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 tick. I don't know. I have no clue how significant that number is, but that means you and I, you got to work a little harder than they do, candidly. So how do people who want signs get sign locations to you, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I have a Facebook page up, the committee, Celeste Heinonen for Winthrop School Committee, or my own Facebook page, or, if anyone watching this wanted to get in touch with you guys, you could give them my email address if that was appropriate. I don't want to make anyone write it down right now. It's long.
I wish we could flash it on the screen.
Right. Exactly.
Is it the one I sent you the
yes.
the link to?
Oh,
If I knew when I set it up, the email would become the new way of communicating with everybody, I would not have set that email up. It's a long name.
Yeah.
But so I'm easy on social media, and if anyone sees this, they can find me. And if not, me and my husband are usually dragging our kids around to a practice field or an after-school event most days. So just look for me there.
Is that it at the bottom? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
That is the best producer in America right there.
I'm on it. Not only on Facebook. I'll settle for that. I'll settle for that. So
you.
Celeste Heinonen at hotmail.com.
Yeah. Celeste, I want to say thank you. I think you did fantastic coming on. This is going live isn't easy, and I don't know. I can't see you sweating, Scott. You see any sweat over there?
No, she handled it well.
You guys make it very comfortable.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, I forgot.
We only come across mean. We're really not.
Yeah, well, sometimes I admit it. Sometimes I lose my temper. What can I say? It happens.
Yeah, I'm Italian. I'm used to it.
We have our moments.
And it's been exaggerated because it's my kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
Yep.
Sorry, not sorry.
I do. I get it.
Cool. Well, I think it was great. Celeste, I want to wish you the best of luck. If you know how to reach us if you have any questions. Make sure you share this. I did. By the way, I did notice our membership jumped up. Scott, I didn't know if you noticed a bunch of new members today, and I think a lot of them are connected to Celeste. So thank you for promoting the page.
Group.
Good. No, thank you guys.
It's really important.
Yeah, no, I agree. I watched Brianna's interview and I learned a lot from her. Not, I know she's my, we're running against each other, but it was nice to hear some of the things she had to say. So I'm glad I got to do the same thing. And, I'll be watching more shows of you guys too. But thank you for letting me speak and letting some people get to know me better.
All right. Celeste Heinonen, running for Winthrop School Committee. She is spot number 6 out of 7 on the ballot. So if you're going to be voting, look all the way down. Look from top to bottom. Don't be lazy.
And don't be a bullet voter. If you don't know what that is, Celeste, we can certainly talk offline. So I want to say goodnight to everybody. Remember, all politics starts at the local level. And you know what? Candidly, Scott, I think it ends there too, frankly. I think that the thing we can control the most is right here in our backyard. So we should be paying the most attention to it.
I always say, don't let what's going on in Washington distract you from your local government.
That's right.
That's what they want. They want people to be distracted. They want to be able to do these, send these text messages without anyone thinking there's no repercussion and nobody's watching, and fly a flag on the on the town hall greens. It's not supposed to be there because no one's watching. So pay attention to your local government, your local politics, because I know we are.
That's right. Bringing you the news that the Winthrop Transcript won't.
Yep.
All politics starts and stops, in my opinion, at the local level. Celeste, have a great night. Thank you so much.
Celeste, stay on 1 second when I
Good
go.
night, all.
Thank
Good night,
you.
all.
All right, we'll see you guys Monday night, 8 o'clock.